What would you think if I told you Angelina Jolie had developed a new missile guidance system? Or Lady Gaga had invented a new technology for secure electronic data communication? You might think, someone had put something funny in my popcorn. However, 70 years ago, something just like that actually happened. Hedy Lamarr was a Hollywood A-lister in the 1940s, but she wasn't just a pretty face.
She's as pretty as a picture and as stubborn as a mule.
The secret to looking glamorous, she once said, was to stand still looking stupid, but Hedy Lamarr was far from stupid. She was so sharp that in between films she invented something to keep Allied sailors safe and give them the upper hand in the war at sea. An incredibly sophisticated system for guiding torpedoes. A few years earlier, Hedy had been married to an Austrian arms dealer and had been present at many of his work discussions on military technology, including torpedoes. She left Austria and her husband in 1937 and made her way to Hollywood. But when the Second World War started, she wanted to use her military know-how to help the fight against Hitler. Torpedoes were deadly, but they had a problem. You could only fire them in straight lines, like a cannonball. If you could radio control them, however, you could steer them wherever you wanted. But that had another problem. If the enemy could tune in to the radio signal you're using, they could jam it. Or worse still, take control and steer it right back at you. Hedy set out to invent a system using radio signals to guide torpedoes in a way that no enemy could intercept. At the time, a huge technical challenge.
Come in.
Help came from a surprising source, the dashingly handsome, daring young composer George Antheil, who created mad, experimental music.
Sounds fascinating.
George created music using mechanized instruments, and his favorite was the pianola. Together, crazy as it sounds, Hedy and George adapted the controlling mechanism for a pianola into a way of guiding torpedoes using radio signals. The pianola was controlled by paper rolls like this. Now, each of these holes corresponds to a particular note. George and Hedy's idea was to put identical rolls, one on the ship and one on the torpedo, and start them turning at exactly the same time. But instead of changing notes on a piano, they would be changing frequencies on the ship's controller and the torpedo's receiver. And by quickly hopping from one channel to another, it made it impossible for anybody else to get a fix on the signal they were using. Their idea of frequency hopping was brilliant, and they were granted a patent for their secret communication system. But the US Navy wasn't interested. They weren't used to getting weapons designs from actresses and composers. Hedy's hopes for making her name as an inventor were dashed.
Hollywood's most famous movie stars leave the film.
Disappointed, she went back to the day job of being one of the most glamorous women in the world. She helped raise over $7 million to help the war effort.
50 screen celebrities giving their time and talents to aid the national war effort.
Hedy and George's invention was never used in World War II. But that's not the end of the story. This is a typical modern mobile phone mast, and masts like this relay all those important phone signals to ensure messages like, "I'm on the train," get through clearly. Crucially, each call constantly switches between different channels to keep our conversations private. Sound familiar? It's a modern version of frequency hopping. The version that makes this work is called spread spectrum technology, but it's a direct descendant of Hedy's idea. The US Navy might not have taken her seriously, but the modern telecommunications industry and anyone who uses a mobile phone owes Hedy Lamarr a big thank you.
I'll be there at 5.